Marcus Stoneheart was supposed to die tonight. Nora Ashford knew this because she'd spent 5 weeks documenting every word of the conspiracy. Because she'd mopped floors outside Victor Kane's office while he and Diana Stone discussed murder like they were planning a budget meeting. Because custodians were furniture, and furniture heard everything.
The
She
quarterly
pressed the mop into the
figures
cold
look good.
tile of the
Yes, let's
admin
review the
hallway,
projections.
watching dirty
Agreed. I'll
water
send the
swirl
updates.
between the grout lines.
The logs don't match.
The
This is a
foundation had
problem.
been quiet for
I
two and
followed
a
the
half
procedure
years.
Exactly.
2.5 years
explain
of
the gap.
being
I
nobody,
can't.
of being so thoroughly dismissed that she'd become invisible in her own life, a ghost walking through other people's conversations. But ghosts see everything. The afternoon light slanted through high windows, painting golden squares across the polished floor. Beautiful, if anyone had time to notice. Most didn't. They rushed past with important business, with foundation matters, with concerns that overshadowed the existence of a woman on her knees. Nora noticed everything. 5 months ago, David Park stopped showing up for morning security briefings. 3 months ago, supply invoices started arriving with amounts that didn't match what she saw delivered at midnight. 2 months ago, loyal staff members were transferred to satellite offices in rural counties, replaced by men whose eyes were hard and whose questions were few. The official reports called them accidents. David Park found hanging in his apartment. James Rodriguez hit black ice on a clear night. Patricia Okonkwo suffered a stroke at 51 with no prior medical history. 7 good people. 7 convenient deaths. Nora had documented each one in the journal hidden beneath the supply closet floorboards. Dates, times, patterns that connected into something darker than accident. Conspiracy, embezzlement, murder. Her hands were rough now, scarred from industrial cleaner and hot water. These were not the hands her father had held when she was 12, teaching her to read financial statements by lamplight, not the hands that had traced money trails while he smiled with pride at his clever daughter. Those hands belonged to another life, before the scandal that killed him when she was 24, before 10 years of running, hiding, surviving under fake names, before she learned that being nobody was safer than being somebody's target. Heavy footsteps approached, Victor's distinctive gait, confident and measured, and beside him, the click of Diana's heels. Nora kept mopping. They would walk past. They always did. They stopped. 10 feet away, just outside Victor's office door. Nora's heart rate didn't change. Years of survival had taught her to wear stillness like armor. Her hands continued their steady rhythm. Her face showed nothing. Victor's voice carried that particular tone of certainty that came from 15 years as an Army colonel. The timeline is locked. Thursday night, Route 74, mile marker 12. Diana's response was quieter, uncertain. You're sure about this? Brake failure, car goes off the cliff, clean accident. Marcus drives that road every Thursday at the same time. Alone. Predictable. Nora's mop moved in slow circles. Her breathing stayed controlled. Everything her father had taught her about staying invisible kicked in. The memorial is already planned? Diana again. Not quite guilt in her voice. Perhaps the faint echo of conscience. Everything. Black flowers ordered. Eulogy written. Regional VFW leaders have accepted their invitations. They believe he'll be there to receive the Lifetime Service Award. They'll find out he's dead. The Foundation messenger will arrive Saturday morning with the tragic news. Car accident Thursday night on the way to therapy. Very sudden, very unfortunate. The sound of papers shuffling. And after? Something flickered in Diana's voice. Fear, maybe. Or calculation. I become CEO by Monday. You stay CFO? The board will need stability, continuity, someone strong to guide them through grief. What about the housing fund? The $50 million earmarked for next year? Gets redirected. We're not shutting down the foundation, Diana, just adjusting priorities, better uses for that money. The veteran families counting on those homes will adjust. We provide job training, counseling, other services. They'll be fine. They were discussing stealing from veterans, from families who'd already lost everything. and planning Marcus Stonehart's murder to do it. Nora had no one to tell. The staff? Diana again. The night custodian who cleans everywhere. She might have heard something. Nora's breath steadied. Force the mop to maintain its rhythm. Don't react. Don't give them anything. You mean the woman with the cart? Nora something. Victor's voice held complete dismissal. She's nobody. Furniture with a mop. He knew her name. More dangerous than she'd realized. Still, she's been here 2.5 years. She has access to everything. Then we'll handle it. After Thursday, loose ends get tied up. Can't leave witnesses to things they might have overheard. They moved into the office. The door closed. Nora sat back on her heels. 2.5 years of survival. And now, a choice. Run. Pack the go-bag she kept in her trunk, slip out the employee gate, disappear into another state with another name. She'd done it before. She could do it again. Or stay. 8 months ago, she'd been in the parking lot after her shift. Maya Torres was 16, gentle, working an internship for college credit when her boyfriend cornered her against a car. The first slap echoed across the empty lot. Maya fell. He raised his hand for the second blow. Nora had frozen. Intervention meant being seen, meant breaking cover, meant risk. But Marcus Stonehart had stepped out of the admin building first. He didn't run, didn't shout, just crossed the lot in long strides, caught the boyfriend's wrist before the second hit connected. The boyfriend swung. Marcus put him on the asphalt in 2 moves that spoke of decades of combat training. He'd looked down at the kid with the kind of calm that meant violence was always an option, just not the first one. Not here, not while I'm standing. Police arrived 4 minutes later. Marcus stayed with Maya until her aunt came, got her a shelter placement that night, arranged the internship to become a paid position, created safety where there'd been none. Nora had watched from the shadows, watched Marcus Stonehart do what her father would have done, step in when it mattered, protect someone who couldn't protect themselves. He'd meant it when he said those words. She'd seen it in his face. He was flawed, distant with his own daughter since his wife died 3 years ago, too focused on mission to see the rot growing in his own organization. But he was trying to build something real, something that helped people who'd already sacrificed everything. He could be better, could learn, could become what these families needed, if he lived. Nora stood, calculations running. Route 74 took 60 miles from the Foundation campus to Asheville. Marcus drove it every Thursday for therapy, 6 p.m. departure. He would leave in 3 hours. And Victor would be waiting, unless someone warned him first. She'd been preparing without realizing it. The escape routes mapped in her first weeks, the go-bag packed and ready, the journal wrapped in waterproof evidence bags. She'd thought she was preparing her own escape. Perhaps she'd been preparing to save someone else. The afternoon crawled past. Nora moved through her remaining tasks with practiced efficiency, emptied trash bins, restocked paper towels, cleaned the break room microwave, and watched the parking lot. The Foundation campus sprawled across 500 acres of Piedmont, North Carolina. Former textile factory converted 15 years ago into housing, job training, and support services for 2,000 veterans and their families. Marcus had built it from a $200,000 disability settlement after his Army Ranger career ended, turned it into a $500 million operation through sheer force of will and tactical brilliance applied to fundraising. Now Victor Kane wanted to steal it. Nora stood in the supply closet that doubled as her break area. Nobody ever came here. The door didn't lock, but it might as well have been invisible. She pulled the journal from beneath the loose floorboard. 5 weeks of intensive documentation, 18 months of financial tracking before that. Every conversation she'd overheard, every supply invoice that didn't match delivery, every wire transfer to shell companies that didn't exist on paper but moved millions in reality. Her father had taught her forensic accounting before she got her CPA license. Gerald Ashford had been the best IRS investigator in the Southeast. He'd exposed the Mercado Foundation scandal in 2014, proved they'd embezzled $80 million from cancer research. They killed him 2 weeks later. Made it look like a heart attack. Nora knew better. She'd been hiding ever since. 10 years of fake names and night shift jobs. 10 years of being nobody because being somebody had gotten her father murdered. But silence had killed 7 people at this foundation. 7 good people who'd questioned Victor's accounting, who'd asked about the missing money, who'd pushed for transparency. David Park had been head of security. He'd flagged supply discrepancies in March, found hanging in his apartment in April, ruled suicide despite no note, no history of depression, and a daughter's wedding planned for June. James Rodriguez had been legal counsel, discovered irregularities in the annual audit, car accident in May on a clear night. Brake failure, they said. Black ice on a road that hadn't seen ice in 3 months. Patricia Okonkwo had been a board member, voted against Victor's expansion proposal because the numbers didn't add up. Stroke in June at 51, no prior medical history, no autopsy because the family was too devastated to question it. 4 more followed, each death convenient, each silencing a voice that questioned, each creating space for Victor to consolidate power. Nora had documented them all, connected the dots, followed the money the way her father taught her. $50 million moving through 12 shell companies, wire transfers to accounts in Delaware and Nevada, invoices for services never rendered, purchase orders for equipment never delivered. Victor Kane was embezzling and killing anyone who noticed. Now he was coming for Marcus. Nora wrapped the journal in its evidence bag. Waterproof, tamper-evident, dated. Everything admissible if she ever got the chance to present it. She checked her watch. 5:47 p.m. Marcus would be loading his truck soon. The employee parking lot sat behind the admin building, separated from visitor parking by a hedge line. Nora moved through the building's rear exit, keeping to the shadows despite the fading daylight. Marcus's truck was already there. Black Chevy Silverado, 8 years old, meticulously maintained. He was a creature of habit. Thursday therapy in Asheville, same route, same time, every week for the past 2 years since his wife died. Predictable. That's what Victor had said. Predictable would get him killed. Nora positioned herself near the dumpsters. She could see the admin building door from here, could intercept him before he reached the truck. Her heart hammered. This was the moment. Step out of shadow or stay hidden. Choose. The door opened. Marcus emerged carrying a leather messenger bag. 6'2", broad shoulders that came from 15 years as an Army Ranger before an IED took most of his left calf in Fallujah. He walked with a slight hitch that most people didn't notice. Nora noticed everything. He wore jeans and a faded UNC sweatshirt. Thursday was his day off from foundation business. Just therapy and time with his daughter Zoe after. Except tonight, Zoe was at her grandmother's house in Durham. He'd be driving alone. No witnesses. Marcus reached the truck, opened the driver's door, started to climb in. Nora moved. She stepped from behind the dumpsters, legs shaking so hard she thought they might give out. Her voice came out strangled, breathless. "Mr. Stoneheart!" He turned. Confusion crossed his face when he saw her. "Nora, you're 4 hours early for your shift." She couldn't breathe, couldn't form words. Just stood there in the parking lot like an idiot while he waited. Marcus's expression shifted from confusion to concern. He stepped away from the truck. "Are you okay? What's wrong?" The words finally came. "Your brakes. Don't get in that truck." He started to smile. Thought she was joking, maybe. Then he saw her face, and the smile died. "What?" "Your brake lines. They've been cut. You get in that truck, you drive Route 74, you die at mile marker 12. Marcus stared at her for 3 seconds. Then he moved. He knelt beside the truck, dropped onto his back, scooted underneath. The light from his phone illuminated the undercarriage. Nora stood frozen, waiting, not breathing. Marcus slid out from under the truck. His face had gone very still. The kind of calm that meant violence was close to the surface. "Brake fluid. Fresh cut on the line. It's been dripping for maybe an hour. He stood slowly, never taking his eyes off the truck. Who would... He stopped, looked at her. Really looked at her for maybe the first time in 2.5 years. Victor, he said, flat, certain. Nora nodded. How do you know? I heard him, planning it. Thursday night, Route 74, mile marker 12. Brake failure, you go off the cliff. They've already written your eulogy. Marcus's hands flexed. The movement was unconscious, muscle memory from years of close-quarters combat. Who's they? Victor and Diana. They've been planning this for weeks. The memorial service is scheduled for Saturday. Regional VFW leaders already invited. They think they're coming for an award ceremony. Victor's going to announce your death instead. Diana. Something broke in his voice when he said her name. His ex-wife. Still the Foundation's CFO. Still someone he trusted with the organization he'd built from nothing. Diana's part of this? She didn't want to. I could hear it in her voice. But she didn't stop it either. Headlights swung into the parking lot, a black Suburban with tinted windows. Nora's blood went cold. That's Victor's security team. Marcus grabbed her arm. His grip was firm, but not painful. You know another way out? Follow me. They ran. Nora led him across the parking lot toward the maintenance building. Behind them, the Suburban's engine cut off. Doors opened. Voices shouted. The maintenance building door was locked. Nora pulled a key ring from her pocket, found the right one in 3 seconds. Her hands shook, but the key slid home. They were inside. She locked it behind them. This way. She moved through darkness like she owned it. 2.5 years of night shifts meant she knew every corner, every obstacle, every path. Marcus followed. His phone light clicked on. Turn it off, Nora whispered. They'll see it through the windows. The light died. He followed her by sound alone. She led him to the back corner to a steel grate set into the concrete floor. Grabbed the edge and pulled. It didn't budge. Marcus knelt beside her. Let me. Together they hauled it up. The grate came free with a shriek of metal on concrete. Below was darkness. The old steam tunnels from when this had been a textile factory in 1987. Nora had found the blueprints in the archive room 6 months ago, photographed them, memorized the routes. Down, she said. Marcus went first, dropped 8 feet to the tunnel floor, landed in a combat crouch. Nora followed, hung from the edge, let go. He caught her, set her on her feet. You know where this goes? I know where everything goes. I've cleaned every building on this campus for 2.5 years. Above them, the maintenance building door rattled, someone testing the lock. Nora pulled the grate closed from below. The fit wasn't perfect, but it would do. She grabbed Marcus's hand, pulled him deeper into the tunnel. They moved through absolute darkness for 30 feet before she stopped, pulled out her own phone, turned on the light. The tunnel stretched ahead, concrete walls slick with condensation. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The air smelled of rust and old water. This connects to the admin building basement, Nora said. Her voice echoed strangely. But they'll check there first. We need to go east, toward the river. How far? Half a mile. Tunnel opens near the old loading docks. Above them, footsteps, heavy boots on concrete, walkie-talkie chatter bleeding through the grate. Not in admin. Try the tunnels. More voices, then a sound that turned Nora's stomach. Barking. Marcus heard it too. His jaw tightened. The security dogs. 6 German shepherds, Victor's personal team. We can't outrun them in these tunnels. We don't have to. The river's half a mile east, current's fast enough. That's the Yadkin. Water's 40 degrees this time of year. We freeze slower than we'll die here. Marcus looked at her in the phone light, really seeing her. The custodian who'd been invisible for 2.5 years, who'd just saved his life, who was proposing they jump into a freezing river to escape murder. You planned this, he said. Not a question. I planned an escape route. Didn't know I'd be using it for you. The barking got closer, echoing through the tunnel system. Show me, Marcus said. They moved east. Nora led, phone light showing the way. The tunnel sloped downward, following the natural grade toward the river. Water seeped through cracks in the walls. Their footsteps splashed. Behind them, the barking intensified. The dogs had found their scent. How much farther? Marcus's breathing was controlled, but she could hear the effort. His prosthetic leg made the uneven terrain harder. 200 yards. There's a junction ahead. We take the right branch. They hit the junction at a run. Nora swung right. The tunnel here was older, brick instead of concrete. The ceiling was lower. Marcus had to duck. Ahead, light. Gray and dim, but real. The tunnel exit. They emerged into twilight beside the Yadkin River. November air hit them, cold and sharp. The river moved fast, black water churning over rocks. Behind them, maybe 50 yards back, the barking reached a fever pitch. The dogs had found the exit. Marcus looked at the river, looked at Nora. We'll get hypothermia. Better than getting torn apart. Can you swim? Well enough. He saw the journal in her hands, wrapped in its evidence bag. You're taking that? It's the only proof we have. 5 weeks of recorded conversations, 18 months of financial forensics, everything we need to prove what Victor's doing. The first dog appeared at the tunnel exit. 100 pounds of trained aggression, bred and trained to take down targets. 5 more behind it. Marcus made his decision. Jump on 3, aim for the deep channel. Stay close to me. 1. The dogs charged. 2. Nora's heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. 3. They jumped. The cold hit like a fist. Water closed over Nora's head, so cold it felt like burning. Every nerve screamed. Her lungs seized. She fought to the surface, gasping. The current had her immediately, dragging her downstream. Marcus surfaced beside her. Don't fight it. Let it carry you. Save your strength. The river pulled them away from the dogs, away from the Foundation campus, away from everything. Nora wrapped both arms around the journal, held it against her chest. Her father's training, her 5 weeks of work. The only evidence that could prove Victor Kane had murdered 7 people and planned to murder an 8th. She wasn't letting go. The current battered them against rocks. Each impact sent pain through her body, but she clung to consciousness, to the journal, to the hope that they'd survive this. Marcus stayed close, used his larger frame to shield her from the worst collisions. She felt him take hits that should have been hers, heard him grunt with pain but never loosen his grip. They were saving each other. The river carried them for what felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes. Nora's hands were numb. Her legs barely responded. Cold was shutting down her body, one system at a time. Marcus's feet found bottom. He pulled them both toward the eastern bank, into shallow water that was no warmer but at least let them stand. They crawled onto muddy ground, both shaking so violently their teeth clattered. Nora's vision blurred, hypothermia setting in. Marcus was already moving despite the shaking. Combat training ran deeper than cold. He gathered deadwood from beneath the tree line, found dry moss in rock cracks, pulled a lighter from his pocket, waterproof case attached to his key ring. It took 4 tries. His hands shook too badly. But the spark caught. Moss smoldered. Wood began to burn. The tiny flame grew, heat and light and hope. "Strip," Marcus said. His voice shook but held command weight. "Your clothes are soaked. You'll die if you keep them on." Nora's face flushed despite the cold. But she understood. This wasn't about modesty. This was about survival. She peeled off her soaked jacket, wrung water from it, draped it near the fire. Her shirt underneath was just as wet. She hesitated. Marcus had already removed his sweatshirt and flannel, was wringing them methodically. He kept his back to her, giving her privacy while making it clear this was necessary. Nora stripped down to her sports bra and jeans, wrung out her shirt, positioned everything to catch heat without burning. They huddled close to the fire. Close enough their shoulders touched. Body heat was survival. Nothing more. For long minutes neither spoke, just focused on not dying. The shaking slowly subsided. Feeling returned to Nora's fingers, painful and sharp. She checked the journal, unwrapped it from the evidence bag. Damp at the edges but largely intact. The waterproofing had held. The evidence survived. Marcus watched her. The waterproof bag, the escape route. How long were you planning this? 2 weeks, since I heard them discussing the timeline. You were planning to run. I was planning to survive. Same thing I've done for 10 years. Why didn't you? Nora looked at him in the firelight. This man she'd watched for 2.5 years. This stranger who'd saved her niece. This target who was supposed to die tonight. Because 8 months ago you saved Maya. You didn't think about it. You just saw someone getting hurt and you moved. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Your niece, Maya Torres. She's all the family I have left. Her mother died when she was 6. Father was never in the picture. I've been watching out for her since I came to North Carolina. You could have run tonight. Disappeared like you've done before. Why risk yourself for me? The question hung in the cold air between them. Nora pulled her knees to her chest. Her father's journal pressed against her ribs. Evidence of another conspiracy, another murder, another time she'd had to choose between silence and speaking. My real name is Nora Ashford, she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. My father was Gerald Ashford. Marcus went very still, recognition dawning. IRS investigator, he said. Exposed the Mercado Foundation in 2014. They embezzled $80 million from cancer research funding. He testified before Congress. 2 weeks later, they killed him. Made it look like a heart attack. He was 49, ran marathons, no history of heart disease, but the autopsy said natural causes and the case closed. They never caught who ordered it. Because the people he exposed were powerful, had connections in federal agencies, state government, law enforcement. My father knew the risk. He did it anyway because staying silent would have meant being complicit. Nora stared into the fire. Seeing her father's face the last time they'd spoken, the pride in his eyes when she showed him the financial analysis she'd completed, the way he'd squeezed her hand. He taught me everything. How to read balance sheets, how to spot shell companies, how to follow money trails through layers of obfuscation. He said the numbers always tell the truth if you know how to listen. You've been hiding since he died. 10 years, 4 states, 6 different names, night shift jobs where nobody looks twice. I learned that being invisible keeps you alive. Marcus added wood to the fire. The flames grew, pushing back the darkness. But you didn't stay invisible tonight. No. Why? Nora unwrapped the journal completely, showed him page after page of her cramped handwriting. Dates, times, conversations recorded word for word. Financial trails mapped with the precision her father had taught her. Because 7 people are dead. David Park, James Rodriguez, Patricia Okonkwo, 4 others. All because they questioned Victor. All because they saw the same patterns I saw. She turned pages. April 3rd, 9:47 p.m. Victor's office. He tells Diana that David Park is becoming a problem. That security personnel asking questions creates liability. 3 days later, David's found dead. Another page. May 12th, 11:23 p.m. conference room. Victor reviews the audit schedule with someone I couldn't identify. Says James Rodriguez is too thorough, asks too many questions. 6 days later, James dies in a car accident. More pages, more deaths, more patterns. I documented it all, the way my father taught me, because documentation is the difference between accusation and proof. Marcus read in silence. She watched his face harden with each entry, each death, each piece of the conspiracy. You've been tracking this for 18 months, he said finally. The murders are recent. 5 weeks since I confirmed the pattern. But I've been following the money since I started working there. Force of habit. My father trained me to always look at the numbers. Show me. Nora flipped to the financial section. Spreadsheets in miniature, hand-drawn with meticulous detail. Wire transfers, shell companies, invoice discrepancies. $50 million, she said. Moving through 12 different entities. Delaware LLCs, Nevada corporations, accounts in the Cayman Islands. The foundation shows expenses for construction projects that were never built, equipment purchases that were never delivered, consultant fees for services never rendered. Victor's embezzling. Has been for at least 3 years, maybe longer. Started small, got bolder when nobody questioned it. Now he's moving millions. And anyone who notices ends up dead. 7 so far. You would have been the 8th. Marcus closed the journal carefully, handed it back to her. You saved my life. You saved Maya first. That's not the same thing. Maya was in immediate danger. You could have run, disappeared, been safe. Safety isn't the same as living. Nora rewrapped the journal in its evidence bag. My father died because he refused to stay silent. 7 more people died because I did stay silent. I documented it, yes, but I didn't act, didn't warn anyone, didn't report it. You couldn't. Victor has connections, police, federal agencies. You go to them without ironclad proof, you disappear like your father. I know. That's why I was planning to run. Take the evidence, find someone I could trust, turn it over from a safe distance. She looked at him. But then I heard them planning your murder. Thursday night, 3 hours away. And I realized documentation isn't enough. Sometimes you have to step out of the shadows. The fire crackled between them. Their clothes were starting to dry. The shaking had mostly stopped, hypothermia retreating to something survivable. Marcus pulled his phone from the waterproof case, checked it. No signal. We're too far from any towers. Where are we? Couple miles downstream from the foundation, near the old mill. This area is basically wilderness. Can we get back? Warn people? Stop Victor? Victor thinks I'm dead. Or will be soon. He'll move fast, consolidate power before anyone questions what happened. The memorial is Saturday. That gives us... Nora checked her watch. Still working, waterproof like everything else she'd prepared. 36 hours. To do what? We're soaked, freezing, miles from anywhere. I have no car, no resources, no allies. Victor controls the foundation. Has security, connections, money. We have evidence. We have a notebook, handwritten, by a custodian nobody knows, against a decorated Army colonel with 15 years of service and impeccable credentials. We have recordings. On your phone, which is where? Nora's stomach dropped. Her phone, in her locker, in the maintenance building, surrounded by Victor's security. Gone, she said, voice flat. So we have handwritten notes, accusations, no physical proof of the recordings, no way to verify anything you've written. There's the brake line, on your truck. That's physical evidence of attempted murder, which Victor will claim was vandalism, teenager's prank, terrible timing but nothing to do with him. Nora felt the plan crumbling. All her preparation, all her documentation, it wasn't enough. Marcus saw her face. I'm not saying give up. I'm saying we need more than what we have. Then what? He stared into the fire. The tactical mind that had kept him alive through 15 years of Ranger deployments was working the problem. We need allies, he said finally. Someone Victor can't intimidate or control. Someone with their own resources and credibility. Who? Everyone at the Foundation is either loyal to Victor or dead. Not everyone. There's one person who hates me enough to be immune to Victor's manipulation. Who has her own organization, her own reputation, her own reasons to want the truth. Nora knew who he meant before he said the name. Elena Rivera. Marcus nodded. 20 years we've competed, fighting over the same funding sources, the same donors, the same government contracts, Carolina Veterans Coalition versus Stoneheart Foundation. We've tanked each other's proposals, stolen each other's staff, bad-mouthed each other to every politician in the state. She won't help you. She might. Because Victor's not just coming for me. He's coming for her, too. What? Marcus looked at her. You said you've been tracking the money for 18 months. Did you see anything about Carolina Coalition? Nora thought back, flipped through pages in her mind. There was something. She'd noted it but hadn't understood the significance. Shell companies, she said slowly. 3 of them, buying shares in private companies. I couldn't track where the shares came from. The ownership was too obscured. Carolina Coalition is technically a private nonprofit corporation. Elena owns 40% of the shares. The board owns the rest. If someone acquired enough shares, they could force a merger with Stoneheart Foundation, and then asset strip both organizations, sell the property, liquidate the investments, walk away with everything. Nora's mind raced. That's not just embezzlement, that's corporate raiding. You're talking about destroying 2 organizations that serve thousands of veteran families. I'm talking about Victor Kane's endgame. He's not stealing $50 million. He's positioning to steal everything. $500 million across both foundations. The fire popped. Sparks drifted into darkness. Elena won't believe you, Nora said. You're rivals. She'll think it's a trick. She'll believe you because you have documentation, financial trails, evidence of the share purchases. He paused. And because you're Gerald Ashford's daughter. Elena knew your father. What? 2013, the year before he died. Gerald was investigating financial irregularities in regional nonprofits. He reached out to Elena, warned her that Mercado Foundation was redirecting cancer research funds, asked her to compare notes on their accounting. She didn't listen. She did. She just couldn't prove anything. But she remembered. After Gerald testified and Mercado collapsed, she tried to find him, wanted to thank him for the warning, found out he'd died instead. Nora's throat tightened. Her father had tried to save people, even at the end, even knowing the risk. Elena will remember, Marcus said. She'll recognize your name, and if you show her what you've found, the same patterns your father spotted, the same kind of fraud, she'll listen. Where is she? Worcester, 45 miles northwest, Coalition headquarters. How do we get there? We have no car, no money. Victor's people are looking for us. Marcus smiled. It was grim, but real. We do what veterans do when everything goes to hell. We improvise. They walked through darkness for 2 hours before reaching the state highway. The fire had dried their clothes enough to survive the November night, but cold still seeped through fabric and into bone. Nora's legs shook with each step. Exhaustion and adrenaline crash hitting simultaneously. Marcus moved steadier despite his prosthetic. Ranger training kicked in when everything else failed. He'd lived through worse. Afghanistan, Iraq. Firefights that lasted 18 hours straight. This was just cold and tired. He knew how to push through. The highway cut through pine forest, 2 lanes of cracked asphalt with no shoulder. Occasional headlights swept past. Nobody stopped. Marcus flagged down the 7th vehicle. Pickup truck, old Ford, driver maybe 70 with a Vietnam veteran cap. Need a lift, Marcus called. Not asking, stating fact. The truck slowed. Window rolled down. The driver looked them over. Wet clothes, muddy shoes, the kind of rough that came from trouble. Where are you headed? Worcester, Carolina Veterans Coalition. The driver's eyes sharpened. Recognized the name. Long way. What's your business there? Personal. Urgent. You military? Ranger. 15 years. Fallujah, Kandahar, places that aren't on maps. The driver studied Marcus's face. Saw something there that resonated. Combat. Recognized combat. Get in. They climbed into the truck bed. The driver didn't offer the cab and Marcus didn't ask. Some help came with conditions. Riding in back kept things simple. The truck pulled onto the highway. Wind cut through the truck bed, stealing what little warmth they'd regained. Nora pressed against the cab wall, trying to block it. Marcus sat beside her, close enough their shoulders touched. You're shaking again. I'm fine. You jumped into a river with 40-degree water, got dragged through rapids, walked 2 hours in wet clothes. You're not fine. Neither are you. I've done worse with a sucking chest wound and 3 broken ribs. This is just Thursday. Despite everything, Nora almost smiled. That happen often in the Rangers? Often enough that I got good at field medicine. He pulled off his jacket, draped it over her shoulders. Wear this. You need it. I run hot. You don't. Wear it. She pulled the jacket tight. It smelled like river water and smoke but held residual warmth from his body. They rode in silence, the highway unwound beneath them, mile markers ticking past. Occasional towns flickered by, small clusters of light in vast darkness. Nora's mind wouldn't stop, kept circling back to Victor's office. The conversation she had overheard, the casual way they'd discussed murder. "Diana didn't want this," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the wind. I could hear it, the way she hesitated, the questions she asked. But she went along anyway. Fear, maybe, or loneliness. I heard her crying in the bathroom once, 3 months ago. She didn't know anyone was there. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. We were married 12 years, divorced 2 years ago. But she stayed on as CFO because the foundation needed her financial expertise. Why did you divorce? Because after Sarah died, my first wife, Zoe's mother, I shut down. Stopped feeling anything. Diana wanted support, connection, someone to grieve with. I gave her accounting reports and budget meetings. You were mourning. I was hiding. There's a difference. He looked at the passing darkness. I built this foundation as therapy after I left the Army. Threw myself into mission planning, operational logistics, tactical execution. Same skills, different battlefield. Helped veterans because I understood what they needed. That's not hiding. It is when you use work to avoid everything else. When you miss your daughter's school plays because you're negotiating contracts. When your wife is crying in the next room and you pretend not to hear because feelings are harder than spreadsheets. Nora understood that impulse, the desire to disappear into something concrete, something you could control. My father did the same thing, she said, after my mother left when I was 8. He buried himself in investigations, worked 70-hour weeks. I learned accounting because it was the only way to spend time with him. We'd sit at the kitchen table until midnight, going through financial statements together. He was teaching you. He was surviving. Same as you. Same as me. The truck slowed. They were approaching Worcester. Streetlights appeared, then buildings. The driver pulled into a gas station, idled near the air pump. Marcus knocked on the cab window. The driver rolled it down. "This is as far as I go. Coalition headquarters is 2 miles north. Follow Main Street, can't miss it. Appreciate the ride." The old man nodded, reached into his glove box, pulled out a $20 bill. "Get some coffee, warm up. Can't take your money. You already did. Now get out before I change my mind." They climbed down. The truck pulled away before Marcus could argue further. Worcester was small, maybe 8,000 people. Main Street ran 4 blocks through downtown, lined with brick buildings from the 1940s. Half were vacant. The rest held antique shops and dollar stores. Carolina Veterans Coalition occupied a converted warehouse on the north end. 3 stories of weathered red brick, windows glowing with light despite the late hour. A sign above the entrance read, "Serving those who served since 1999. 20 years. Elena Rivera had built this from nothing. Same as Marcus. Different methods, same mission. They stood across the street, watching. "She won't want to see you," Nora said. "I know. You said you've tanked each other's proposals, stolen staff, bad-mouthed each other to politicians. For 20 years. It's been personal. Then why would she help? Because Victor's coming for her too. And because underneath all the competition, we want the same thing. To help people who've already lost everything." Marcus crossed the street. Nora followed. The front entrance was locked. A security camera pointed down at them. Marcus pressed the buzzer. Silence. Then a voice through the speaker, female, young. "We're closed. Come back Monday." "I need to see Elena Rivera. It's urgent." "She's not available. Leave a message on the website." "Tell her Marcus Stonehart is here." Long pause. Then, "Marcus Stonehart is dead. Car accident last night. It's been all over the news." Marcus stepped closer to the camera, let it get a clear view of his face. Reports of my death are wrong. I need to see Elena, now. Another pause. This one stretched 30 seconds. Nora could imagine the conversation happening inside, the debate about whether this was real or some elaborate trick. The door buzzed. Lock clicked open. They entered a lobby that had seen better decades. Linoleum floor, fluorescent lights, metal detector at the inner door. 2 security guards waited, both armed, both watching Marcus like he might explode. "Hands where we can see them," the older guard said. "Move slow." They complied. The guards searched them thoroughly, found Nora's journal, flipped through it, handed it back, found nothing else worth noting. "Upstairs, 3rd floor. Someone will meet you." The elevator was industrial, cage door and exposed cables. It groaned upward, stopped with a jolt on the 3rd floor. Elena Rivera waited in the hallway. 65 years old, gray hair pulled back in a tight braid, 5'4" but carrying herself like she owned every inch of space around her. She wore jeans and a flannel shirt despite the hour. Work clothes, not executive attire. Her eyes locked on Marcus. Hard. Assessing. "You're either a ghost or Victor's a liar. Betting on liar. He tried to kill me. Cut my brake lines. I'd be dead if not for her." Marcus gestured to Nora. Elena's gaze shifted. "Who are you?" Nora's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Someone who knows the truth." "That's not an answer." "My name is Nora Ashford. I've been documenting Victor Kane's conspiracy for 5 weeks. I have proof he's planning to destroy your organization." Elena's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. "Ashford. Gerald Ashford was your father." "You knew him." "Met him once, 2013. He warned me about financial irregularities in regional nonprofits. Asked me to compare notes on Mercado Foundation's accounting." "Did you?" "I looked into it, couldn't prove anything, but I believed him." Elena paused. "He died 2 weeks after he testified before Congress. They said heart attack." "They killed him. Same people he exposed, same methods Victor's using now." "That's a serious accusation. I have serious evidence." Elena studied her for a long moment, then gestured down the hall. "My office. We talk there." The office was Spartan. Metal desk, filing cabinets, folding chairs. Maps covered one wall showing veteran population density across North Carolina. Photos covered another. Elena with soldiers. Elena at ribbon cuttings. Elena testifying before state legislature. 20 years of fighting for funding. Fighting for recognition. Fighting to keep her organization alive while larger foundations like Stoneheart sucked up resources. Elena sat behind her desk. Marcus and Nora took the folding chairs. "Explain," Elena said. Single word. Command weight. Nora laid the journal on the desk. "Victor Kane has been embezzling from Stoneheart Foundation for at least 3 years. $50 million moved through 12 shell companies. Delaware LLCs, Nevada corporations, Cayman accounts." "You can prove this?" "Financial trails, invoice discrepancies, wire transfers to entities that don't exist. I've tracked every transaction." "You're a forensic accountant?" "I'm a CPA. My father taught me financial investigation before I got my license." "You work for Stoneheart?" "Night custodian, 2.5 years." Elena's eyebrows rose. "Custodian. People talk in front of custodians. We're invisible. They forget we have ears." "What did you hear?" Nora opened the journal. Started with David Park. The conversations leading up to his death. The patterns. The 7 murders spread across 18 months. Elena listened without interruption. Her face hardened with each entry. When Nora finished, Elena was silent for 30 seconds. Then she picked up the phone, dialed an extension. "Carol, get up here. Bring the Q2 financial review." She hung up, looked at Marcus. "You've been quiet." "This is her evidence, her investigation. I'm just the target who survived." "Victor really tried to kill you?" "Cut my brake lines. I was supposed to go off the cliff on Route 74 at mile marker 12 tonight. Thursday therapy session. Same route every week. Predictable. That's what got me nearly killed. A woman entered carrying a thick folder. Late 50s, gray suit, reading glasses on a chain. She handed the folder to Elena. Carol, this is Marcus Stoneheart and Nora Ashford. Marcus, Nora, this is Carol Yang, my CFO. Carol's eyes widened. I thought you were dead. Getting that a lot tonight. Elena opened the folder, pulled out spreadsheets. 3 months ago, we noticed something strange. Share purchases in our corporate structure. Small amounts, different buyers, but coordinated timing. She slid the spreadsheet across to Nora. Look familiar? Nora scanned the numbers. Transaction dates, purchase amounts, buyer entities. Her stomach dropped. These are 3 of Victor's shell companies, the ones I couldn't trace. They've been buying your shares. How much? Marcus asked. Elena's voice was flat. 27% so far. Another 14%, and they can force a board vote. Merge us with Stoneheart, liquidate both organizations, walk away with everything. Carol spoke up. Her voice shook slightly. $500 million across both foundations. Property, investments, endowments. It's not embezzlement anymore. It's corporate raiding. The room went silent, the magnitude settling in. Marcus leaned forward. When did the purchases start? 6 months ago, April. Right after Patricia Okonkwo died. She was the board member who questioned Victor's expansion proposal. Because she saw what he was planning, Nora said. Her mind was racing now, connecting dots. Expansion wasn't about serving more veterans. It was about positioning for a merger, creating overlap in services, duplicate facilities, justification for consolidation. Elena nodded slowly. And once consolidated, he strips the assets, sells the property, liquidates the investments. The shell companies buy everything at fire sale prices. Then disappear into offshore accounts where nobody can trace them, Marcus finished. Carol sat down heavily. This destroys both organizations. Thousands of veteran families lose housing, job training, medical support, counseling, everything. Not if we stop him, Elena said. How? Marcus's voice was controlled, but Nora heard the edge underneath. He's already announced I'm dead. Memorial service is Saturday. By Monday, he'll be CEO. He'll have full control of Stoneheart, leverage to push through the merger before anyone realizes what's happening. We expose him, publicly, before the memorial. With what evidence? Handwritten notes from a custodian? Financial analysis that requires forensic expertise to understand? He'll say it's fabricated. Revenge from a disgruntled employee and a jealous rival. Elena's jaw tightened. She didn't like hearing it but couldn't argue. The phone on her desk rang. She picked up. What? Her face changed. Went very still. When? How many? She listened. Lock it down. Nobody in or out. I'll be right there. She hung up, looked at Marcus and Nora. Victor's security team just arrived at my front gate. 6 vehicles, 20 men. They're demanding I turn you over. Marcus stood, combat reflexes kicking in. How long do we have? 5 minutes before they try to breach, maybe 10. Can you hold them? For a while, but if they force entry, this becomes a shootout. I've got 30 staff in this building. I won't risk their lives. Then we leave. Draw them away from here. Where will you go? Victor has resources, connections, people everywhere. He'll hunt you across the state. Nora's phone buzzed. She'd forgotten she still had it. No, wait, this wasn't her phone. This was Marcus's phone, the one she'd grabbed when they fled. She pulled it out. Text message from an unknown number. The message made her blood freeze. Marcus, look at this. He read over her shoulder. His face went hard. The text was simple, direct, devastating. Have your daughter. Return to Foundation by midnight or she dies. VK. Below the text was a photo. Zoe Stoneheart, 8 years old, sitting in an office chair, eyes red from crying but trying to be brave. Marcus's hands shook. The phone trembled in his grip. Elena saw the screen. "He took your daughter." "She's supposed to be in Durham, at her grandmother's house. Victor must have sent people, picked her up hours ago, before you even knew you were a target." Marcus's voice came out strangled. "He's had her all day, since this morning." The tactical mind that had kept him alive through 15 years of combat was fracturing. This wasn't a battlefield. This was his daughter, his only child, the person he'd failed to protect because he'd been too focused on mission. Nora grabbed his arm. "We get her back." "How?" "He's got her inside the foundation, surrounded by security, cameras everywhere. He knows we're here. He's watching." "Then we don't hide. We attack." Elena's voice cut in. Sharp, tactical. "Explain." Nora's mind was racing. Everything her father taught her, everything she'd learned watching Victor, everything she'd documented. Victor's strength is information control. He manipulates narratives, controls who knows what. The memorial service is built on a lie. Everyone believes Marcus is dead. Victor's the grieving partner stepping up. "So we shatter the lie," Elena said, understanding dawning. "We call an emergency board meeting, both foundations, tomorrow, Saturday afternoon, during memorial setup. Victor won't come. He'll know it's a trap. He'll come because we make it public. Media invited. Regional VFW leaders. Every politician who's ever cut a check. We tell them there's evidence of financial irregularities requiring immediate board review." Marcus was following now, the tactical mind reasserting itself despite the fear. He can't refuse without looking guilty, but he'll bring Zoe, use her as insurance. Then we use that. We get him in a room full of witnesses with cameras rolling. He can't hurt her there. Too public. Too many eyes. "And we expose everything," Carol said. "The embezzlement, the murders, the shell companies, all of it." Elena picked up her phone, started dialing. "I'm calling the board chairman. Emergency session 2 p.m. tomorrow. My building. Joint session with Stoneheart." She paused, looked at Marcus. "This works. He goes to prison. It fails. People die. You sure about this?" Marcus thought of Zoe, 8 years old, scared, waiting for her father to save her. "I'm sure." Elena nodded, started making calls. Nora pulled out her journal. "We need to organize the evidence, make it presentable. Financial trails that a board can understand in 30 minutes. Carol gestured to a conference room. "This way, I'll help." They worked through the night, Nora and Carol converting handwritten notes into spreadsheets, transaction logs, shell company networks, visual maps showing money flow. Marcus coordinated with Elena, security protocols, media strategy, contingency plans if Victor tried to force his way out. At 3 a.m., Maya called Nora's phone, the real one, still in her locker at the foundation. Nora had given Elena's number as emergency contact months ago. "Aunt Nora?" Relief flooded through Nora. "Maya, are you safe?" "I'm at the foundation. Mr. Kane brought me in yesterday. Said you and Mr. Stoneheart were in an accident. Needed my help with something." "What kind of help?" "He wanted me to go through files, delete some records, but I didn't. I copied them instead." Nora's heart rate spiked. "What files?" "Email chains, meeting notes, audio recordings from security cameras. He doesn't know I saved copies. I hid them on a thumb drive." "Where are you now?" "Ladies' room, 3rd floor. He thinks I'm sleeping in the break room, but I snuck out." "Maya, listen carefully. Can you get to Victor's office?" "Why? Is there a little girl there, 8 years old, black, scared?" Silence. Then, "In the conference room. Door's locked, but I can see through the window. She's alone. Her name is Zoe. She's Mr. Stoneheart's daughter. Victor's using her as hostage." "Oh my God. Can you get to her?" "The door has a keypad lock, but I know the code. I've cleaned that office for 3 weeks." Marcus was suddenly there, grabbing the phone. "Maya, this is Marcus Stoneheart. Can you get my daughter out?" I think so. There's a service corridor behind the conference room, connects to the loading dock. If I can get her out of the room, we can get outside. Do it. Get her away from that building. Take her to the police station downtown. Tell them Victor Kane kidnapped her. Stay there until I come. What about you? I'll be there tomorrow. 2 p.m. board meeting. Bring the thumb drive. Okay. I'll get Zoe. I promise. The call ended. Marcus handed the phone back. His hands were steadier now. Having a mission helped, knowing his daughter had a chance. That girl is 16, Elena said. You're asking her to break into a locked room and extract a hostage from a building full of armed security. She's also Maya Torres, the girl I saved 8 months ago. She's braver than most soldiers I've known. She gets caught, Victor will kill her. She won't get caught. She's been invisible her whole life, same as Nora. People don't see what they're not looking for. An hour later, Maya called back. We're out. Zoe's with me. We're at the police station. Marcus sagged against the conference table. Relief so intense it made him dizzy. Is she hurt? Scared, but okay. They didn't hurt her, just kept her locked up. Did anyone see you leave? No. I used the service corridor like I said. We're safe. Stay there. Don't talk to anyone except the police. Tell them everything. Victor's kidnapping, the threats, all of it. Already did. They're sending officers to the foundation now. Marcus closed his eyes. Thank you, Maya. You saved her life. You saved mine first. We're even. The call ended. Elena stood. Victor's about to have police at his door. That changes the timeline. He'll run, Carol said. Get out before they arrive. Take whatever money he can access. Then we move faster. Board meeting moves to noon. Get everyone there by 11. We go public before he can disappear. Marcus pulled out his phone, started texting. Nora watched him. Who are you contacting? Every board member I trust. Every VFW leader who's supported the foundation. Every reporter who's covered veteran issues. Victor will know. He'll see the activity. Know something's happening. Good. Let him panic. Panicked people make mistakes. They worked until dawn, building the case, organizing evidence, preparing presentations. At 8 a.m., the first board members started arriving, Stoneheart and Carolina Coalition both, confusion on their faces, questions about why they'd been summoned on a Saturday, why the joint session. At 9 a.m., media showed up, local news crews, regional papers. Someone had leaked that Marcus Stoneheart would be making an appearance. At 10 a.m., police called. They'd gone to the foundation, found Victor's office empty, security team gone. The building mostly deserted except for residential staff who had no idea what was happening. Victor had run. Elena got the call, relayed it to Marcus and Nora. He's gone, cleared out sometime after midnight. Marcus's jaw tightened. How much money did he access? Police are checking now, but if he had offshore accounts ready, he could have moved millions before anyone noticed. Then we've lost. He's gone, the money's gone, we have no case. We have evidence, Nora said. We have documentation. We have Maya's thumb drive with deleted files. We have accusations against a man who's disappeared. No prosecutor will bring charges without a defendant. The conference room fell silent. They'd done everything right. Gathered evidence, built alliances, planned the exposure, and Victor had slipped away. Nora felt the weight of it. 7 people dead. Marcus nearly killed. Zoe traumatized. Thousands of veteran families about to lose everything. And the man responsible was gone. Her father had died trying to expose fraud. She'd spent 10 years hiding from the consequences. 5 weeks documenting Victor's crimes. And in the end, it hadn't been enough. The silence stretched. Then Marcus's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Stoneheart. The voice on the other end made him go very still. Marcus, it's Diana. He put it on speaker. Diana's voice was shaking, tears underneath every word. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he'd actually do it. I thought it was just talk, just financial maneuvering. Then David died, and James, and Patricia, and I was too scared to speak up. Where are you, Diana? At the foundation, in Victor's office. He left files everywhere when he ran, shredding documents, burning papers, but he missed some. I have them. What kind of files? Everything. Meeting notes where he discusses the murders, email chains with the people he hired, financial records showing exactly where the money went, and recordings. What recordings? Security cameras. He kept backup footage of conversations, proof of his plans. He was collecting insurance in case anyone turned on him. But he left it all behind. Elena leaned in. Why are you telling us this? Because 7 people are dead. Because he took an 8-year-old child. Because I stayed silent and let it happen. Her voice cracked. I can't undo what I did, but I can give you what you need to stop him. Marcus's voice was careful, controlled. Why should we trust you? You shouldn't. I don't deserve trust. I deserve prison, but those families deserve justice, and I'm the only one who can give you proof. Silence. Marcus looked at Elena, at Nora. Nora nodded. She's telling the truth. I heard it in her voice when Victor was planning this. She didn't want it. She just didn't have the courage to stop it. Marcus made his decision. Bring everything to Carolina Coalition headquarters, noon. Board meeting is at 12:30. You testify to everything. On camera, in front of everyone. I will, I promise. The call ended. Nora looked at Marcus. You believe her? I believe she's scared. I believe she knows Victor will kill her if he finds out she talked. I believe self-preservation is stronger than loyalty. What if it's a trap? Then we're already trapped. Victor knows where we are. He could have sent people any time. The fact he ran means he's more scared of exposure than of us. Elena checked her watch. 2 hours until the meeting. We need to be ready for anything. They spent the next hour preparing. Carol and Nora refined the financial presentation. Elena coordinated with security. Marcus briefed the board members as they arrived. At 11:30, Diana walked through the front entrance. She looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Eyes red from crying, hair uncombed, wearing the same clothes as yesterday. She carried a banker's box filled with files. Marcus met her in the lobby. Nora and Elena flanked him. Diana set the box down. Everything's here. Meeting notes, emails, financial records, security footage, proof of all of it. Marcus picked up a folder, scanned the first page. His face hardened. This is a meeting agenda from March. Discussion items include David Park problem resolution. Dated 3 days before he died, Diana said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Another folder, email chain. Victor coordinating with someone named J. Torres about brake line modifications scheduled for Thursday. Evidence. Real, physical, undeniable evidence. Nora took the box, started sorting files. Her hands moved fast, organizing by date and topic, building a narrative. This is enough, she said. This proves everything. The murders, the embezzlement, the conspiracy. Diana looked at Marcus, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know people died because I stayed quiet. But I couldn't anymore. Not after he took Zoe. Marcus's voice was flat. You'll testify. To all of it. Every conversation. Every plan you knew about. Yes. And you'll face the consequences. Prison. Loss of everything. Yes. Then let's end this. They went upstairs. The conference room was packed. 40 people. Board members from both foundations. Regional VFW leaders. Local politicians. Media crews. Everyone who mattered in North Carolina Veteran Services. Elena called the meeting to order at 12:30. Thank you for coming on short notice. We've called this joint emergency session because of evidence that's come to light regarding serious financial and criminal misconduct. Murmurs around the room. Confusion. Some people still thought Marcus was dead. Elena continued. First, I want to introduce someone you all know, or thought you knew. Marcus Stoneheart. Marcus stepped forward. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, camera flashes. Marcus waited for silence. When it came, his voice carried absolute authority. I'm alive. I was supposed to die Thursday night. My brake lines were cut. I was meant to go off the cliff on Route 74. Someone in this room planned my murder. Someone you all trusted. He gestured to Nora. This is Nora Ashford. For 2.5 years, she's worked as a night custodian at Stoneheart Foundation. She's also a CPA and the daughter of Gerald Ashford, the IRS investigator who exposed the Mercado Foundation scandal in 2014. Nora stepped forward, placed the journal on the table. For 5 weeks, I documented a conspiracy. For 18 months before that, I tracked financial fraud. What I found was a plan to murder 7 people, embezzle $50 million, and ultimately destroy both Stoneheart Foundation and Carolina Veterans Coalition. She opened the journal, started with David Park. The room was absolutely silent as she spoke, laying out dates, times, conversations, financial trails. When she finished, Carol presented the spreadsheets. Visual maps of shell companies, wire transfers, share purchases. Then Diana stood. Her voice shook but held. My name is Diana Stone. I'm CFO of Stoneheart Foundation, and I helped Victor Kane plan everything you've heard. The room exploded again. Elena had to call for order twice. Diana continued. I knew about the embezzlement. I knew about the murders. I knew he planned to kill Marcus. And I stayed silent because I was scared and lonely, and Victor made me feel important. She laid out Victor's files, passed them to the board chairman. This is proof, all of it. Meeting notes, emails, security footage. Victor kept insurance files in case anyone turned on him. He left them behind when he ran last night. The chairman flipped through pages. His face went pale. This is a discussion about killing David Park, dated 3 days before his death. Yes. And this email chain coordinates brake line sabotage. Yes. Where is Victor Kane now? Gone. He cleared out after midnight. Probably left the state. The chairman looked at Elena, at Marcus, at the evidence spread across the table. We need to contact law enforcement immediately. Federal prosecutors. This is beyond board jurisdiction. Already done, Elena said. FBI field office in Charlotte has been briefed. They're issuing warrants now. Marcus stepped forward. There's one more thing. He pulled out his phone, played the voicemail Victor had sent with Zoe's photo. The room listened to Victor's voice. Cold, threatening, demanding Marcus return or his daughter dies. When it finished, Marcus's voice was quiet, controlled. My daughter is 8 years old. Victor Kane held her hostage to force my silence. He's not just an embezzler. He's not just a murderer. He's someone who terrorizes children to maintain power. The board chairman stood. Motion to remove Victor Kane from all positions effective immediately. Motion to freeze all foundation accounts pending forensic audit. Motion to cooperate fully with law enforcement investigation. Second, said 3 voices simultaneously. All in favor? Unanimous. The meeting continued for another hour. Details, procedures, damage control. But the core was done. Victor Kane's conspiracy was exposed, his crimes documented, his power shattered. By 3 p.m., FBI agents arrived to collect evidence. By 4 p.m., federal warrants were issued for Victor's arrest. By 5 p.m., his face was on every news channel in the state. Marcus stood outside Carolina Coalition headquarters as the sun set, Nora beside him, Elena on his other side. He'll run, Elena said. Man with his resources, his connections, he could disappear for years. Maybe. But he can't come back, can't access his money, can't threaten anyone. Marcus looked at Nora. Because of you. You documented everything. You didn't stay silent when silence would have been safer. Nora felt her father's journal pressed against her ribs. Evidence of another conspiracy, another time someone had chosen to speak. My father taught me that silence has a body count. 7 people died because I waited 5 weeks to act. I won't make that mistake again. Elena's phone buzzed. She checked it. Her expression shifted. FBI just picked up Victor, Charlotte Airport. He was trying to board a flight to Mexico using a fake passport. Marcus felt something release in his chest. Not quite relief, not quite satisfaction, just the knowledge that it was over. What happens now? Nora asked. Elena looked at both of them. Now we rebuild. Both foundations, stronger this time, with oversight, with transparency, with people who actually care about the mission. She extended her hand to Marcus. 20 years we've competed. Time we tried cooperation instead. Marcus shook. Agreed. They stood together as darkness fell across Worcester. 3 people who'd been enemies or strangers 24 hours ago. Now allies. Now partners in something bigger than rivalry. Inside, the board was already working. Planning audits. Restructuring leadership. Building systems to prevent this from ever happening again. Outside, Nora pulled out her father's journal. Added one final entry. November 15th, 2024. Victor Kane arrested. Conspiracy exposed. 7 murders documented. Justice incomplete but moving forward. Dad would be proud. She closed the journal. Tomorrow she'd turn it over to federal prosecutors. Evidence in the case that would put Victor away for life. But tonight, it was still hers. Still her father's legacy. Still proof that speaking truth mattered even when the cost was high. Marcus's phone rang. Zoe's grandmother. She's asking for you. When are you coming? 20 minutes, I'm on my way. He looked at Nora and Elena. I need to see my daughter. Explain what happened. Help her understand why she was taken. Go, Elena said. We'll handle things here. Marcus started to leave, stopped, turned back. Nora, what you did, saving my life, documenting the evidence, speaking up when staying silent would have been safer. I owe you everything. You saved Maya first. We're even. We're not even, not close. He paused. When this settles, when the legal stuff is done, I want you at Stoneheart, CFO, compliance officer, whatever position lets you use what you know. I'm a custodian. You're a CPA with forensic training who just exposed a $50 million conspiracy. You're whatever you choose to be. He walked away, heading to his daughter, his family, his reason for fighting. Nora stood with Elena as night deepened. He's right, Elena said. You could work anywhere, do anything. Why stay in nonprofits? Why stay in this world? Nora thought about her father, about Maya, about the 7 people who died because someone needed to speak and didn't. Because the furniture still sees everything, and someone needs to be paying attention. The trial began 6 months later on a Tuesday morning in May. Federal Courthouse in Charlotte. Courtroom 7. B. High ceilings, dark wood, the kind of institutional gravity meant to remind everyone that justice moved slow but absolute. Victor Kane sat at the defense table in a gray suit, hair cut short, posture military straight. 40 people in the gallery, but he looked at none of them. Just stared forward at the judge's bench like this was all beneath him. Nora sat 3 rows back. Marcus beside her. Elena on his other side. Maya behind them with Zoe, who'd insisted on coming despite being only 8. The girl wanted to see the man who'd locked her in a room, wanted to watch him answer for it. The prosecutor was federal. Caroline Webb, 38, Eastern District Specialist in white-collar crime with a conviction rate that made defense attorneys nervous. She'd spent 4 months building the case from Nora's documentation, Diana's testimony, and the files Victor left behind. Webb stood for opening statements. Her voice carried across the courtroom with the precision of someone who'd done this 100 times. Victor Kane stole $50 million from veterans, Murdered 7 people who questioned him. Attempted to murder Marcus Stoneheart. Kidnapped an 8-year-old child. And planned to destroy 2 organizations serving thousands of families who'd already sacrificed everything for this country. She walked to the evidence table, picked up Nora's journal. This is how we know. Because for 5 weeks a woman named Nora Ashford documented every conversation, every plan, every crime. She did what 7 others tried to do before they died. She spoke up. Webb set the journal down, turned to face the jury. The defense will tell you this is circumstantial, that the evidence is flawed, that their client is a decorated veteran being railroaded by jealous competitors. She paused. Let the silence build. But circumstantial evidence becomes proof when there's enough of it. When financial records match witness testimony. When security footage confirms conversations. When the defendant's own files document his crimes. Another pause. Victor Kane thought he was smarter than everyone. Thought invisible people didn't matter. Thought no one was watching. Webb looked directly at Nora. He was wrong. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Prosecutors called 47 witnesses. Started with forensic accountants who traced every dollar through shell companies and offshore accounts. Showed wire transfers timed precisely with suspicious deaths. Showed invoices for services never rendered and equipment never delivered. Then they called the families. David Park's daughter testified about finding her father dead 3 days before her wedding. About the suicide ruling that never made sense because he'd been excited about walking her down the aisle. About the questions that went unanswered until Nora's documentation proved it was murder. James Rodriguez's wife described the car accident. Clear night, dry roads, brake failure on a vehicle that had been serviced the week before. She'd known something was wrong, had pushed for investigation, been told accidents happen and she needed to move on and grieve. Patricia Okonkwo's son talked about the stroke. His mother had been 51, healthy, running 5 miles every morning, then dead in her kitchen with no warning. He'd found her, called 911, watched paramedics work for 40 minutes before declaring her gone. 4 more families, 4 more stories, 4 more lives destroyed by a man who'd thought murder was cleaner than answering questions. The jury listened. Some cried. Some just stared at Victor with expressions that made the defense attorneys shift in their seats. On day 8, Diana Stone took the stand. She wore a simple black dress, no makeup, hair pulled back. She'd lost 20 pounds since November, looked 10 years older. Webb approached the witness stand with the careful respect of someone handling damaged goods. Ms. Stone, what was your relationship to Victor Kane? Diana's voice was quiet but steady. I was CFO of Stoneheart Foundation. Victor was COO. We worked together for 8 years. We became involved 3 years ago. Involved how? Romantically, secretly. My divorce from Marcus wasn't final yet. It seemed inappropriate to make it public. When did you learn about Victor's embezzlement? 2 years ago. I noticed discrepancies in quarterly reports. Questioned him about them. He explained it as accounting adjustments for tax purposes. I believed him because I wanted to. When did you learn about the murders? Diana's hands shook. She gripped the armrests to steady them. April, after David Park died. Victor came to my apartment that night. He was drinking, which was unusual. He said David had been asking too many questions about supply invoices, said it was handled now, said we wouldn't have that problem anymore. Did you understand what he meant? Not then. I thought he meant David had been transferred or fired, but then James Rodriguez died, and Patricia, and I started seeing the pattern. Why didn't you report it? The question landed like a fist. Diana's face crumpled. Because I was scared. Because I was complicit. Because I'd signed off on financial reports I knew were questionable. Because Victor said if I talked, I'd go to prison too. When did you decide to come forward? When he took Zoe Stoneheart, an 8-year-old child. I heard him on the phone threatening Marcus, saying he'd hurt her if Marcus didn't surrender, and I realized I'd become someone I didn't recognize, someone who let children get terrorized to protect a lie. Webb let that sit with the jury, then walked back to the evidence table. Ms. Stone, you brought files to the emergency board meeting, files that proved Victor's crimes. Why did he keep those files? Insurance. He said powerful people always keep insurance, proof of what others know in case anyone tries to betray them. He documented everything, meeting notes, email chains, recordings. He thought it made him untouchable. But he left them behind when he fled. He panicked, knew the police were coming, grabbed what cash he could access and ran. Didn't realize I'd stayed behind. Why did you stay? Diana looked at the jury, at the families in the gallery, at Zoe Stoneheart sitting between Maya and her grandmother. Because running would have meant 7 people died for nothing. Because I couldn't undo what I'd done, but I could stop pretending it didn't happen. The defense attorney cross-examined for 2 hours, tried to paint Diana as a scorned lover seeking revenge, tried to suggest she'd fabricated evidence to deflect from her own crimes. Diana didn't break, answered every question with the same quiet certainty. Yes, she was guilty. Yes, she deserved prison. Yes, she was testifying to reduce her sentence, but none of that made the evidence false. On day 12, Nora took the stand. Webb established her credentials first: CPA license, Gerald Ashford's daughter, 2.5 years at Stoneheart Foundation, then got to the heart of it. Ms. Ashford, why did you start documenting Victor Kane's activities? Nora's voice was steady. She'd practiced this, knew every word mattered. Because I saw patterns. Supply invoices that didn't match deliveries. Wire transfers to companies that didn't exist. Staff members being replaced or transferred after asking questions. My father taught me to recognize fraud. These were the same patterns he saw before he was killed. Your father was murdered for exposing fraud. Yes. The Mercado Foundation scandal in 2014. He testified before Congress. 2 weeks later, he was dead. They called it a heart attack, but I knew better. Why didn't you go to police when you first suspected Victor? Because my father went to police, went to federal agencies, went through official channels, and they killed him anyway. The people he exposed had connections everywhere. I learned that staying invisible kept me alive. But you didn't stay invisible. No. Because 7 people died. Because I documented their deaths and did nothing. Because on November 14th I heard Victor planning to kill Marcus Stoneheart, and I had to choose. Run like I'd always done, or finally speak up. Webb picked up the journal. This is your documentation. 5 weeks of handwritten notes. Why handwritten? Digital records can be hacked, deleted, altered. Paper is harder to destroy. My father taught me that. Write everything down. Date it. Keep it safe. You jumped into a freezing river to protect this journal. It was the only proof we had. Without it, Victor's word against mine. A decorated colonel versus a night custodian. I wasn't letting go. The defense attorney tried to dismantle her credibility. Pointed out she'd been hiding for 10 years under fake names. Suggested she had mental health issues stemming from her father's death. Implied she'd fabricated everything for attention or revenge. Nora answered each attack with facts. Dates, times, specific quotes from conversations, financial transactions down to the penny. The attorney pressed harder. You expect this jury to believe you memorized entire conversations while mopping floors? I didn't memorize them. I recorded them. The courtroom went silent. I had my phone in the cleaning cart, voice recorder app running whenever I was near Victor's office. I documented 5 weeks of conversations, exact quotes, time stamped. Where are these recordings now? The phone was in my locker when we fled. Victor's security team seized it. Federal investigators recovered it during their warrant execution. The recordings are entered as evidence exhibits 47 through 93. The defense attorney's face went pale. He'd walked into a trap. Webb stood. Your Honor, permission to play Exhibit 52, recorded November 13th, 8:47 p.m. The judge nodded. Victor's voice filled the courtroom. Clear, undeniable. Discussing brake line sabotage with someone identified as Jay Torres from his security team. planning the exact details of Marcus's murder. The jury listened. Several took notes. One woman in the back row wiped tears. When it finished, Webb turned to the defense attorney. "Any further questions about Ms. Ashford's credibility?" He sat down. On day 15, Marcus testified. He described the brake line sabotage, the river crossing, the threat to his daughter. He stayed clinical, factual, controlled. The prosecutor needed facts, not emotion, but when Webb asked about Zoe's kidnapping, his voice cracked. "She's 8 years old. She called me from the police station after Maya got her out. She was trying not to cry because she thought if she cried it meant she was weak. And I had to tell my daughter that being scared doesn't make you weak, that the man who took her was in custody, that she was safe now." He looked at Victor for the first time since the trial started. "You terrorized my child. You murdered 7 people. You tried to destroy everything I built to help families who'd already lost everything. And you did it for money. Just money." The defense rested without calling Victor to testify. Too risky. The recordings were too damning. Better to argue reasonable doubt than put their client on the stand. Closing arguments took 4 hours. The defense claimed conspiracy. Said Nora, Marcus, and Diana had fabricated evidence to destroy Victor and seize control of both foundations. Said the recordings were edited. Said the financial records were manipulated. Said Victor was being railroaded by people with agendas. Webb stood for the prosecution's closing. She didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. "The defense wants you to believe this is complicated, that the evidence is questionable, that there's reasonable doubt." She walked to the evidence table, picked up folders one by one. "Here's what's not in doubt. $50 million missing. Shell companies that don't exist except on paper. Wire transfers to offshore accounts. Invoice for brake line modifications dated November 13th. Security footage showing Victor's team at Marcus Stonehart's truck. Phone records showing Victor calling Diana minutes after Marcus escaped. And recordings of Victor's own voice planning every crime he's charged with." She set the folders down. "The defense says this is conspiracy. I say it's documentation. The defense says the evidence is fabricated. I say it's corroborated by 47 witnesses and Victor Kane's own files. The defense says there's reasonable doubt. I say there's only one doubt, whether you'll hold a powerful man accountable for crimes he thought he'd never answer for." Webb looked at the jury. Nora Ashford risked her life to document the truth. Diana Stone destroyed her career to testify. Marcus Stonehart survived murder and kidnapping to be here. 7 families buried loved ones while Victor Kane stole their money and planned their deaths. She paused. "Let the weight settle. The evidence isn't complicated. Victor Kane is guilty. The only question is whether you'll say so." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Came back at 4:47 p.m. on the 3rd Friday of May. The foreman stood, read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Embezzlement. 7 counts of first-degree murder. Attempted murder. Kidnapping. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Victor's face didn't change, just stared forward like he was somewhere else entirely. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was 70, 30 years on the federal bench, reputation for harsh sentences in white-collar crime. He'd read every page of evidence, listened to every recording, heard from every family. "Mr. Kane, you stole from veterans, murdered 7 people, terrorized a child. You did this while wearing the uniform's legacy as cover, while claiming to serve those who'd already served." The judge's voice was cold. "The prosecution recommends life without parole. The defense asks for mercy based on your military service. I've considered both." He looked at Victor. "Your service ended when you murdered David Park. Everything after that was betrayal. You don't get credit for past honor when present action destroys it." He read the sentence. Life in federal prison without possibility of parole on each murder count. Sentences to run consecutively. Minimum 45 years before any review. Victor was 62. He'd die in prison. The judge continued. "Diana Stone, you'll be sentenced separately. The prosecution recommends 10 years based on your cooperation. I'm inclined to agree. But you'll spend the rest of your life knowing 7 people died while you stayed silent. That's a sentence no court can impose. Diana nodded, tears streaming down her face. The marshals took Victor away. He walked out of the courtroom in shackles, head high, still playing soldier even though the war was lost. Nora watched him go. Felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief, just the hollow knowledge that justice didn't bring anyone back. Outside the courthouse, media waited. Cameras, reporters, questions shouted from every direction. Marcus stepped to the microphones. Nora stayed back. This wasn't her moment. Victor Kane will spend the rest of his life in prison. 7 families have some measure of justice. Stoneheart Foundation and Carolina Veterans Coalition are rebuilding with transparency and oversight. That's what matters. A reporter pushed through. What about Nora Ashford, the custodian who documented everything? Marcus looked back at her. Ms. Ashford did what 7 others tried to do before they were killed. She saw something wrong and refused to stay silent. That's not just courage, that's integrity. Is she still working as a custodian? No. She's our chief financial officer and compliance director, making sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else. Nora's chest tightened. The title was new. They'd announced it that morning. CFO of a foundation she'd been scrubbing floors for 6 months ago. The reporter turned to her. Ms. Ashford, what would you say to people who see corruption but are afraid to report it? Nora stepped forward. She'd avoided cameras for 10 years, hidden from anyone who might recognize Gerald Ashford's daughter. But hiding was over. Document everything. Dates, times, exact words. Build evidence that can't be dismissed. Then find someone you trust and speak up. Because silence has a body count, and every day you wait, that count grows. Another reporter. Your father was killed for exposing fraud. Weren't you afraid the same thing would happen to you? Terrified, every day. But fear isn't a reason to let people die. My father taught me that. He knew the risk and did it anyway. 7 people at Stoneheart knew the risk and spoke up anyway. They paid for it. I wasn't going to let their deaths mean nothing. What's next for you? Making sure foundations actually serve the people they're supposed to help. Training others to recognize fraud. Building systems where speaking up is protected instead of punished. She looked at the cameras. My father died exposing the Mercado Foundation. I spent 10 years hiding from that. But hiding doesn't stop fraud. It just lets it grow. So I'm done hiding. I'm Gerald Ashford's daughter. I'm a forensic accountant. And I'm going to make sure what he died for actually meant something. The press conference lasted another 20 minutes. Then they escaped to Elena's car, drove back to Worcester. 6 months had changed everything. Stoneheart Foundation had new leadership. Marcus as CEO, but with actual oversight. Board meetings open to staff. Anonymous reporting systems. Quarterly audits by independent firms. Every financial decision required dual approval. Carolina Veterans Coalition implemented the same reforms. Elena brought Nora in as consultant, helped design the transparency protocols. Together, the foundation served 3,000 veteran families across North Carolina. Housing, job training, medical support, counseling, everything Victor had tried to destroy was stronger now, but 7 people were still dead, and no verdict brought them back. Nora sat in her new office at Stoneheart. 3rd floor, corner view, actual desk instead of a supply cart. The CFO nameplate felt like someone else's life. Maya knocked on the doorframe. 19 now, finishing community college, working part-time as administrative coordinator. The internship had become permanent. Mr. Stoneheart wants to see you. Conference room. Nora grabbed her tablet, headed down the hall. Marcus waited with Elena and Carol Yang. They'd formed an unofficial alliance over the past 6 months, quarterly meetings to share best practices, coordinate services, prevent duplication. Marcus gestured to a chair. We have a problem. Nora sat. What kind? The kind that sounds familiar, Green Valley Veterans Initiative out of Raleigh. They approached us last month about a merger. Seemed legitimate. Strong financials, Good programs, respected leadership. Seemed? Elena slid papers across the table. Carol ran deep background, found shell companies in their ownership structure, invoices that don't quite match, supply purchases that seem inflated. Nora scanned the documents, her father's training kicking in automatically. Follow the money, look for patterns, trust the numbers. How much? Potentially $30 million over 2 years, maybe more. Leadership? Director is former Air Force, Colonel Frank Weaver, impeccable record, 25 years service, multiple commendations. Nora's stomach dropped. Like Victor. Exactly like Victor. Which is why we're bringing this to you. If there's fraud here, we need to know before we merge, before families get hurt. Nora studied the financials, saw the same patterns she'd seen at Stoneheart. Money moving through layers, invoices for services that seemed vague, consultants paid amounts that didn't match industry standard. I need access to their full records, bank statements, vendor contracts, staff interviews. Marcus nodded. Elena and I can arrange that. We're doing due diligence before any merger. They'll have to open their books. How long do I have? 4 weeks. They want an answer by end of June. Nora looked at the papers spread across the table. Another foundation, another decorated veteran in leadership, another potential conspiracy. If there's fraud here, people might die before I can prove it, same as before. Elena's voice was gentle. That's why we're asking now, before anyone dies, before the pattern repeats. What if I'm wrong? What if I see fraud where there isn't any because I'm looking for it? Then we verify. Bring in external auditors. Triple-check everything. But your instincts saved lives last time. We're not ignoring them now. Nora gathered the papers. I'll start tonight. She worked 18-hour days for 3 weeks. Dove into Green Valley's financials the way her father had taught her. Built spreadsheets. Tracked every dollar. Interviewed staff who seemed nervous when questions got specific. The patterns emerged slowly. More subtle than Victor's operation. Smaller amounts. Better hidden. But there. $30 million over 2 years. Moved through 6 shell companies. Vendor payments to businesses that existed only on paper. Construction projects invoiced but never started. And staff deaths. 3 in 18 months. All ruled accidental. All happened after they questioned accounting irregularities. Nora documented everything. Built the case file the way she'd built Victor's. Dates, times, financial trails, witness statements. On week 4, she presented to Marcus and Elena. They listened in silence, reviewed her evidence, asked pointed questions. When she finished, Marcus sat back. You're sure? As sure as I was about Victor. Same patterns, smaller scale but same methods. What do? We don't merge. We report this to federal prosecutors. We warn other foundations in the region. And we make sure Frank Weaver answers for what he's done before anyone else dies. Elena pulled out her phone, started dialing. I'm calling Caroline Webb. She'll want this. The investigation took 4 months. FBI raided Green Valley in September, found evidence matching Nora's documentation, arrested Frank Weaver and 3 others. Trial was scheduled for next spring. Nora testified at the grand jury, presented her findings, watched the prosecution build their case the same way Webb had built Victor's, and she knew this wouldn't be the last time. Fraud didn't end with Victor Kane, wouldn't end with Frank Weaver. There were too many organizations handling too much money with too little oversight. But now there was someone watching, someone who knew what to look for, someone who wouldn't stay silent. December brought the first anniversary of Victor's arrest. Stoneheart Foundation held a memorial service for the 7 who died. David Park, James Rodriguez, Patricia Okonkwo. The 4 others whose names were carved into a granite monument in the foundation's main plaza. Their families attended, stood together while Marcus spoke about sacrifice and integrity and the cost of speaking truth. Nora stood in back, didn't want attention, just wanted to honor people who'd tried to do what she'd finally done. After the ceremony, David Park's daughter approached. Amy, 29 now, Married 6 months ago without her father to walk her down the aisle. I wanted to thank you for proving what happened to my dad, for making sure Victor answered for it. Nora's throat tightened. I'm sorry I didn't act sooner. Maybe if I'd... Don't. You documented everything. You risked your life. You got justice for all of them. That's more than anyone else did. Amy pulled out a photo. Her wedding day. She was beautiful in white, smiling, but the sadness in her eyes was unmistakable. He should have been there, walking me down the aisle, meeting my husband, being part of my life. Victor took that, but you made sure he paid for it. That matters. She hugged Nora, held on tight. When she pulled back, tears streamed down both their faces. My dad would have liked you. He stood up to Victor too, asked questions nobody else would ask. You finished what he started. 7 families. 7 people who'd tried to speak and died for it. Nora carried their weight every day. That night, Marcus found her in her office. 9 p.m., building mostly empty. Just her and a spreadsheet analyzing Q4 expenditures. You're still here. Numbers don't analyze themselves. Marcus sat across from her. You've been working 80-hour weeks since the trial ended. Elena's worried. Maya's worried. I'm worried. I'm fine. You're not. You haven't been since the verdict. Nora stopped typing, stared at the screen without seeing it. 7 people died, Marcus. 7. Because I documented instead of acting. Because I was too scared to speak up until you were next. If I'd gone to police after David Park, after James Rodriguez, maybe they'd still be alive. Or maybe you'd be dead too. Victor killed anyone who questioned him. You'd have been number 8. At least I'd have tried. You did try. You documented everything, built evidence that was unassailable, got Victor convicted on all counts. That's not failure. It's not success either. Success would have been stopping him before 7 people died. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke with the careful weight of someone who'd thought about this extensively. My first deployment was Afghanistan, Helmand Province. We were clearing a village when we hit an IED. Killed 2 of my men instantly. I was 20 feet away. I should have seen it, should have spotted the signs, should have called halt. He looked at his hands. I carried that for years. The should-haves, the what-ifs, the certainty that if I'd been better, faster, smarter, they'd still be alive. You know what my therapist finally made me understand? Nora waited. That carrying their deaths doesn't honor them. Using what I learned from their deaths to save others, that honors them. You didn't kill those 7 people, Victor did, but you made sure their deaths exposed him, made sure he'd never kill again. That's how you honor them. By investigating more fraud, by finding more conspiracies, by watching for the next Victor Kane, by making sure the next person who sees what you saw has systems in place to report it safely, by building transparency so fraud can't hide, by training people to recognize patterns before bodies start piling up. He pulled out a folder, set it on her desk. Gerald Ashford Whistleblower Protection Fund. You mentioned it at the trial. I made it real. $500,000 in seed funding, legal support for anyone who reports fraud, financial assistance for people who lose jobs for speaking up, training programs on documentation and evidence building. Nora opened the folder, saw incorporation papers, fund bylaws, a board of directors that included her, Marcus, Elena, and 3 others. Why? Because your father died trying to expose fraud. 7 more people died at Stoneheart. You nearly died stopping Victor. That cycle has to break. This fund is how we break it. Nora read through the documents. Her father's name on every page. His legacy turned into something that would protect others. I don't know what to say. Say you'll run it. Train the next generation of fraud investigators. Teach people what your father taught you. Make sure nobody has to hide for 10 years because they told the truth. She looked at him. This man she'd saved, who'd become partner instead of boss, who'd learned to listen instead of just commanding. I'll do it, but not alone. This needs people who understand risk, who've lived through retaliation. Maya should be involved. She extracted Zoe from a locked building surrounded by armed security. She knows courage under pressure. Agreed. Who else? Diana. Marcus's face hardened. She helped Victor, stayed silent while people died. And she testified, brought evidence, destroyed her career to stop him. She knows what silence costs. She can teach people why speaking up matters even when it's terrifying. She's in prison, 18 months left on her sentence. Then we bring her in after she's released. Give her a chance to make amends. Show people that redemption is possible if you're willing to face consequences. Marcus considered this. Elena will object. Elena respects second chances. We ask her. They worked until midnight, planning the fund, designing training programs, building systems to protect whistleblowers instead of punishing them. When Nora finally left, Marcus walked her to the parking lot. One more thing. Personal question. Okay. Why do you still drive that beat-up Toyota? You're CFO now. You can afford better. Nora looked at her car. 15 years old. Rusted fenders, cracked windshield. She'd bought it with cash 3 years ago under a fake name. Because it reminds me where I came from, what it cost to get here. 10 years of hiding, 10 years of fake names and night shifts and looking over my shoulder. I don't ever want to forget what silence costs. You could remember without driving a car that barely runs. Maybe, but this works for me. Marcus nodded, started to walk away, stopped. Your father would be proud, not just of what you did with Victor, of who you became. You could have stayed hidden, could have run like you planned, but you stepped out of the shadows and saved lives. He'd also be disappointed I waited so long to act. He'd understand fear, and he'd be proud you overcame it. Nora drove home to the apartment she'd rented under her real name for the first time in 10 years. No more hiding, no more fake IDs, no more looking over her shoulder. Gerald Ashford's daughter was visible now, and she was going to make damn sure his death meant something. 3 months later, the Gerald Ashford Whistleblower Protection Fund launched officially. Press conference at Stoneheart Foundation. Marcus and Elena co-presenting. Nora in the background where she preferred. This fund provides legal support, financial assistance, and protection for anyone who reports fraud in nonprofit organizations. We train people to document evidence. We connect them with prosecutors. We make sure speaking up doesn't mean losing everything. A reporter asked the obvious question. Why name it after Gerald Ashford? Marcus looked at Nora. She stepped forward, still uncomfortable with cameras but getting better. My father exposed the Mercado Foundation in 2014, proved they'd stolen $80 million from cancer research. He testified before Congress knowing the risk. 2 weeks later he was dead. They called it natural causes. I knew better. She paused, making sure her voice stayed steady. I hid for 10 years because I was terrified. But hiding didn't stop fraud, it just let it grow. 7 more people died at Stoneheart because fraud went unreported. This fund is how we break that cycle, how we make sure the next person who sees corruption has support instead of fear. Another reporter. You've exposed 2 major conspiracies in 8 months, Victor Kane and Frank Weaver. Are there more? Probably. Fraud exists wherever there's money and poor oversight. But now there are systems to catch it. People trained to recognize it. Resources to support those who report it. What would you say to someone who sees fraud but is afraid to speak up? Nora thought about her father, about the 7 who'd died, about Amy Park missing her father at her wedding. I'd say fear is reasonable. Retaliation is real, but silence kills. Every day you wait, someone else might die. Document everything, build evidence. Then find someone you trust and speak, because the cost of silence is always higher than the cost of truth. The fund grew rapidly. Within 6 months, they'd received 47 reports of potential fraud from nonprofits across 12 states. Investigated 23. Found actionable evidence in 15. Referred 8 to federal prosecutors. Nora trained investigators, taught them her father's methods, how to read financial statements, how to spot shell companies, how to follow money through layers of obfuscation. Maya became her assistant. Turned out the girl had talent for pattern recognition, could look at invoice sequences and spot inconsistencies nobody else saw. Diana was released from prison in October, served 18 months of her 10-year sentence due to cooperation and good behavior. Nora hired her immediately. Elena objected at first. She let 7 people die. And she's spent every day since trying to make amends. She speaks at conferences about the cost of silence. She trains people to recognize when they're being manipulated into complicity. She's more effective than any of us because she lived through it. Elena relented. By December, the fund had prevented 3 potential conspiracies from reaching Victor Kane levels. Caught fraud early. Got prosecutors involved before anyone died. Not perfect, but better. On the anniversary of Victor's conviction, Nora visited the memorial again. 7 names carved in granite. 7 lives cut short. She placed flowers at the base. Stood in silence. Marcus found her there. He'd started doing this, checking on her when she got too quiet, making sure the weight didn't crush her. They'd be grateful for what you built, for making their deaths mean something. Their deaths shouldn't have meant anything. They should have lived, raised families, retired, grown old. Victor took that. And you made sure he paid for it. Made sure he'd never do it again. That's justice. Justice doesn't bring them back. No, but it stops the next one. Every fraud you prevent, every conspiracy you expose, that's how you honor them. Nora touched David Park's name, carved deep into stone, permanent. Amy's pregnant, due in March. She's naming the baby David if it's a boy. She told you that? Last week. Said her dad would have been a great-grandfather. Said she hopes her son inherits his integrity. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You gave her that. The ability to honor her father, to know his death exposed evil instead of being meaningless. They stood together as winter light faded across the memorial. 7 names, 7 lives, 7 reasons to keep fighting. Nora made a promise to the stone, to the people whose names it bore, to her father whose legacy she carried. She wouldn't stop, wouldn't hide, wouldn't let silence kill anyone else. The furniture was done being invisible. Now the furniture was watching, documenting, speaking, and fraud would answer for it.